Hi everyone, I am Shishir Mishra. I am a business consultant from India, and I am an author of the book From Starting Small to Winning Big, the definitive digital marketing guide for startup entrepreneurs. And my publisher is a Business Expert Press from New York. And recently, my book got selected by Harvard Business Publishing to be added to their education website. So I have with me Shane. Uh, he's a truly inspiring personality. Welcome, Shane. Welcome. Uh, Shane is from Ireland, and today we are here to discuss about his upcoming book, a really interesting book that is Zero to 10 Million: How to Build a eight-figure technology business. So
Great. Well, thank you very much, Shashir. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me today to talk a little bit about myself and the book. I really appreciate it.
you're most welcome. So, just a few words about Shane. Shane is one of the leading technology entrepreneurs in Europe. He has 25 years of experience in entrepreneurship, investment funds, and in emerging technology. He has worked in senior roles for HSBC, Northern Trust, BNP Paribas in Dublin, London, Edinburgh, New York, and Sydney. He has successfully launched and scaled multiple businesses globally, and he has personally raised $3.5 million dollars from a leading US investor, and which directly creating over $12 million dollars in shareholder value. In 2016, one of his technology companies, that is GECKO Governance, won Europe's largest startup competition. That is truly inspiring, Shane. Your profile is like very interesting and very inspiring for the entrepreneurs. So I would like to know how has been your journey so far.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you very much for that very warm and kind introduction, Shashir. I really appreciate it. God, that makes me sound fantastic. Well, certainly it's all true, and it's been a very interesting journey way back in 1997 when I started working in the investment funds industry. And I always really enjoyed technology. And I did a lot of work in my past around projects and a lot of work around compliance because over the last 20 years, the area of investments has become much more regulated. But I was always the kind of person that wanted to have my own company and I wanted to have my own business. I would have been very lucky to have built up a great network that allowed me to work all around the world. So I worked in Australia for many years and in London for a long, long time and over in the US. I didn't work in India, but I visited many times, which was great. And I love the country. But it meant that I got exposure in financial services to many different areas of the investment funds industry globally. And what I mean by that, Shashir, is pension funds and investment funds where people are saving money. And like most industries, really, technology is revolutionizing the whole world of financial services. So back around the time of the financial crisis, back at around 2008, 2009, I was living over in London and I was working on a number of with a number of really big financial companies. And what I found was that there was new regulation, new compliance, new rules coming out. And I decided to set up a little consultancy at the time, my very first business, which would help some of these big companies take all these rules and put them in place, at their head offices in London and New York and in Dublin here in Ireland as well. And as I was doing that, as I was managing these really big financial projects, I found that I needed some technology to help me do it. So the technology available was general project technology. It wasn't specifically for the funds industry. It didn't really help with a lot of compliance. So I decided that I was going to actually build my own technology because I just couldn't find it in the market. And Shashir, I always advise entrepreneurs to try and solve your own problem or your own pain point. And that was a big problem I had. I had a lot of pain trying to manage very complex projects that couldn't be wrong because the financial regulator, would be very, very unhappy. So there was a lot of risk. So I came back to Ireland about 7 or 8 years ago, and I spent some time, 3 or 4 or 5 years really, building a company called GECKO Governance, which has been very successful and now has offices over in New York and over in Australia as well. And then even since then, I wanted to, as obviously, capture some of the pain points and some of the advice and some of the expertise I feel I've gained over the last number of years in the tech, and particularly as a non-tech person, as a non-tech technology person setting up a technology business. And what I did over that time was really, bring the company from zero to a 10, $12 million valuation, which I'll tell you all about now in a moment.
That's really interesting. Even for a technology person, setting up a eight-figure technology business would be a dream, or the most wildest of their dream. And for a non-tech person, setting up a technology business, it is even more challenging. So,
Yeah, exactly.
coming to that point, uh, what was your motivation behind that writing the book? What
Sure.
truly inspired you?
I can tell you what happened. I decided this year, earlier in 2020, just around the time that everybody was in lockdown, with COVID, that
Mhm.
really I gained a lot of experience in the previous 5 or 10 years, and that I remembered back. So I suppose this year was the first time I had a chance to really pause and, exhale and take some time to kind of take stock of what I'd learned over the last 5 or 10 years. And really, as a writer, as somebody who's written a lot of articles and white papers and even some self-published books, I've always really, when I wanted to learn something new, like for example, how to set up a tech business going back 8 years ago, I would have always tried to find the best books available to do that. And of course, there's some great books in the market, like Gary Kawasaki and The Art of the Start. The Hard Thing About Hard Things is amazing. Zero to One, all really great books. But what I felt was missing, and I really got a lot from those more high level Silicon Valley focused books. But what I really felt was missing was something which would give me the day-to-day reality of, for the layperson, how do you actually build a business that, institutional investors or venture capital investors will want to put a few $1 million into. If you're not in San Francisco, if you're somewhere else in the world, you're not going to be able to raise money with a good PowerPoint presentation or an idea. You're going to have some traction, something to show for yourself, and, a referenceable customer. And really, what I'd learned a lot about fundraising in particular, trying to raise money at different stages, be they angel investors or as you move through to seed investment and dealing with high net worth individuals. And I really felt a lot of the experience I'd had could really be of benefit to other entrepreneurs starting their journey. And if it took me probably 5 good years this year to get to the point where we were able to get like a Series A term sheet, for a couple of $1 million at a, 10, $12 million valuation. So that probably took me 5 years. And I genuinely believe if I had have had this book and the knowledge and expertise or the advice and the war stories and the pain, as well as all the good stuff, I could have probably done that in certainly 3 years or half the time. So what I did, I structured the book in kind of a 3-year period. Of course, that may change depending on the entrepreneur, but I tried to say, look, in year one, here's what you should do to initially turn your idea into a company. Here's what you should do to get the first good version of your product out there. The first people you need to hire. How do you manage cash flow in that first year when you're going to run out of your savings pretty quickly, and it can be hard to raise cash, and then how do you get the name out there, marketing? So those sort of initial steps in year one. In year two moves into much more of actual fundraising, getting your first business client if you're B2B software, how to build a good team of trusted advisors, accountants and lawyers, and then going right through to year three when you're looking for much bigger checks, a lot more money, and you're looking to innovate continually as well as sell to large global companies, which I could write a book about by itself, because trying to sell to a huge international organization, when you're only a small business, is a hugely challenging endeavor. Very, very worthwhile, but it's something that entrepreneurs, as they scale their business, have to learn pretty quickly.
And I totally find that thing interesting, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they have ideas, but when it
Yeah,
comes to execution, that is the
yeah,
toughest part. And
yeah, sure is.
have a practical guide, like when you get insights from someone who has done it before, then I
Yeah.
think that would be very much relatable to someone who is planning to build his own technology business.
Exactly. It's very hard to know all the different areas. I mean, I've come across some incredible developers and programmers and engineers, and but also it's a different set of skills is often required for marketing and hiring the right team and building and managing a team with different diverse personalities and also experiences. Because often, you can't afford to hire the best person. You have to try and get, maybe a good graduate you can train up. You're trying to manage things financially very carefully and get your name out there, while at the same time get your first clients on board as you also raise money. So a supreme exercise in delicately trying to balance all of those little plates that you're spinning in the air, but it definitely can be done. And what I was trying to, as you said, trying to do with this practical guide was tell people at each stage of the journey what they should be trying to do, what worked for me, like in the real world. So to get to the point where an angel investor would maybe invest $100,000, or a seed VC investor in America would invest $1 million, you're going to have certain things to show for yourself, be it an initial product, a referenceable client, a certain amount of initial revenue, and to understand at each point in time what you will have to do to get them excited, to be able to then jump to the next stage of growth. So when should you open an office in America, for example, or in India? Where should you be in growth to do that, to scale properly? Where does it make the best sense? So to be able to have because as a startup CEO, your head does be spinning quite a lot of the time, and I was trying to put some structure on all those different pieces that need to move forward together, but be managed properly by the startup CEO. Yeah, so that's exactly a practical guide. Exactly.
So that's like a lot of insights curated in one book. So from the insights you have mentioned in your book, so your book is ideally good for entrepreneurs. Who else do you think should read your book, and who else will find it interesting, and who can implement the learnings from your book?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of us have often thought to ourselves, I would have had an idea, as you mentioned, for starting your own business, and it's as you said, it's implementation, it's making the dream a reality, which is the hard bit, and also the rewarding bit, and also the bit that financially makes everything worthwhile. But what I would hope is that this could help two types of people. One, people thinking about setting up their own business, so they can really see the reality of what's involved, because I've also included sections about resilience and personal resilience, which is very important to be able to manage your family life as well as your professional life, and to be able to manage your relationships with customers, employees, and also investors. So there's a lot of things to manage simultaneously. And I think if anyone thinking about setting up their own business will hopefully enable them to think critically about the different areas that you have to manage. I would also like it to be, because of the way I've sectioned the book, I want people to be able to dip in and out of it, so that it's not a big thick book they have to read through, but if they want to understand what are the key points of, for example, a seed funding round, what they need to do, or getting the first business clients, or when they should open their first foreign office, and basically what we did and what I did when I was growing the business, what worked in the real world and what didn't work, what was great and what was a disaster. I've included all of that by section. So really, I want it to be very practically actionable, that people can actually use the information and the insights in there to make their life better. And I really, really do hope genuinely that any entrepreneurs that decide to embark on the very exciting creative journey of launching their own business will hopefully not only have their knowledge increased through this book, but also enable them to not make some of the mistakes I made, going down the wrong road with a particular product, or with the wrong initial team, or even having the resilience, to be able to see light at the end of the tunnel. A great example, Shashir, would be around fundraising. And if I write a follow-on book that I've been thinking about, I'll probably follow on fundraising, because it's the area that I get the most questions about in my coaching business. So for example, when you sit down with a very good venture capital company, maybe in the US or in Asia, like, you are negotiating the biggest financial deal of your life, probably ever. And these guys do it every single day. This is what they do for a living. It's most definitely not what you do for a living. You mightn't even understand the terms that are in there and what they really mean for your business operationally and in the future if you try and exit or expand. And I wanted to cover that. So what does a good term sheet look like? What is a fair deal in terms of both the founder and particularly the investor's rights in the company? What is acceptable nowadays, and what you should keep in mind to ensure that you don't get ripped off, and that you have a good future with your investors.
So I think that that is one thing that makes your book unique, that you have not only covered the professional journey of an entrepreneur, but you have also mentioned the different areas, like balancing your personal life as well
Yeah.
with your profession as an entrepreneur. So that is very interesting, because a lot of times entrepreneur get consumed by their idea of their startup, and they forget about like all the things, all the different areas they have to manage when they have to
Yeah.
run their own business. So I think that is very interesting.
Well, thank you, Shashir. I was just going to say to you very quickly, I got some great personal advice from one of my business mentors, and they said you try and manage your investors and your company and your clients and your employees, and they're like all these balls you're spinning in the air. But he said that those balls bounce, but your family is a glass ball, and if that hits the ground, that will shatter. So in other words, if for whatever reason your business doesn't work out, you know something, in a couple of years time you'll bounce back with something else. You have great experience, you will get your business life back on track. But if your family ball smashes, you may never get it back on track. So I always kept that in my head.
That is like one great lesson for the upcoming entrepreneurs, uh, especially in the times of this corona pandemic and as well as the lockdown that ensued. The
Yeah,
technology businesses are paving the way for digital
yeah,
transformation.
yeah.
So back in the days, like 3 to 4 years back, digital transformation was just a buzzword, but now it is
Mhm.
like affecting every industry. For
Yeah.
example, the education industry, which was a little skeptical about whether to invest in technology or not,
Mhm.
now the need of the hour is technology for them. So what do you think, like what is how a technology business can survive and how they can set up their growth trajectory in the times of lockdown and this pandemic?
Yeah, and you know something, it does lockdown in one sense, it has hugely accelerated the move to technology, and all of our as human beings and our society, its reliance on technology. So to be a technology entrepreneur, in one side, it's a huge opportunity, absolutely. On the other side, so it means stuff like fundraising, for example, and growing the business. Like it means there's much more available, and it's a very good time. But simultaneously, when you set up your own little business and you have your initial core team, you become you become nearly like a family unit, because you spend so much time together, and everybody's working on. One day you're doing sales and marketing and engineering, and your initial team can work in all different areas. So that synergy and that very close collaboration, which I've never experienced in any of my other big company professional jobs, is very hard to replicate remotely. If you're in the same room and you're getting lunch together and all that stuff, which is hard to do, in a lockdown situation where people are in different places. But just I wanted to make the point. One of the key areas that I feel that startup companies, after a few years, fall back on is what I call innovation for growth. So in other words, what often happens with a startup tech company is, if things go well and they get a bit of funding and they get a decent product out there and they get some good traction, often what happens is they start to bring in some revenue. Maybe they maybe get to say $1 million in revenue, which would be great, and then they can raise some more money and look at expanding. But often what happens is, after the really hard work of getting to that point, the company can sometimes stop innovating or even stop growing. So I remember a VC in New York said to me, only 20% of the companies that reach 1 million in revenue will get to 5 million in revenue, because the CEO or the team, that they're happy enough, they might decide to sell the business, for 10 or 15 million dollars, and that's great. Maybe they decide to exit, but to take that big jump into a much larger, organization, much more post what I would call Series A, the company is going to have to really focus on innovation, and that's one of the reasons why it can be good to raise a couple of $1 million in Series A funding, to be able to look at new enhancements to your product, either incremental or really, incredibly revolutionary. Because what will happen is, if you've carved out your really good niche and you're doing well, the wider competition, maybe some of the big players in your industry, will either try and buy you or try and destroy you. So you need to keep innovating all the time. And it can be hard to keep that in your mind as a startup entrepreneur, when you're really just trying to keep the company alive and keep it growing and focus on your initial technology and your initial idea. And so once you get to that couple of years down the line, it's good to sometimes hire a really good product person who can speak to the industry and look at the market and your customers and decide then what we need to do to build in the future to ensure you have the next stage of growth that you're going up to.
So that's like very realistic in the times of this pandemic, that uh, virtually collaborating with a small team and keeping them dedicated, committed
Yeah.
towards their goal is like would be a very tough challenge in especially in these times. So
Yeah.
I am like right now very much motivated, and I just want to like read your book. So when is your book, like 0 to 10 million, how to build a 8-figure technology business, out in the market?
Well, I'm very excited. Business Expert Press will be publishing the book the first week in February. So not too long away. We're just finalizing it, the copywriting and some of the pieces of it now, and it should be out the first week in February. But what I would encourage anyone listening who might be interested in the book or to find out more about and what I'm doing, or wants to get in touch, they can check out my website, which is shanebrett.io. And I'll be updating that regularly with updates and latest news about the book's publication, as well as hopefully forthcoming webinars. And like yourself, Shashir, you very kindly organized this one.
Thanks. And it was like very interesting for me as well to get those first-hand insights from you. Your like your experience and your practical exposure in terms of doing all the things which are required for starting a business. That is like that is some information that everyone will find interesting, and especially those entrepreneurs who are like trying to break the ice in the technology market.
It is exactly. It's just taking that first step. In the very first chapter in the book, Shashir, I kind of said, look, you need to do 4 or 5 things. If you're serious about this, and if you do this, you're going to be ahead of 90% of other entrepreneurs. And some of them are a bit frightening. Some of them are easy, like setting up an email address and, registering a website. But then you have to go in and actually incorporate the company, and do that. And then maybe register with your tax office. And that's the dream becoming a reality. But it's a really important step, because then all of a sudden it goes from an idea in your head to an actual entity which you can then grow and value. It can become investable. It can really be your you're a really great future company. So that's the frightening bit. But if you do that first 4 or 5 steps in the first chapter, you'll be ahead of 9 out of 10 other entrepreneurs in the world.
That's great. And one interesting fact about Shane is that he's a drummer as well. So Shane,
Oh yes.
so are you?
Let me show you.
Yes.
Look. I've got a big drum kit just here.
So are you getting any time to practice during this
During
lockdown?
the lockdown? Well, here in Ireland, we're actually gone back in with the second phase of the coronavirus. It got quite bad about a few weeks ago. So unfortunately, we went back into a second lockdown recently. But before that, I'm in a funk rock band, a really kind of groovy bass 4-piece band, and we recorded 7 songs from our first album just in September. So hopefully in December, before Christmas, we're going to record another 4 songs, and then hopefully we'll release the album in the new year, maybe even around the same time as the book. So I'll keep you busy.
Maybe next time we can hear you play the drum.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Definitely, I'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Shashir.
Thanks a lot, Shane. Thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it. And I think it was like a very engaging and interesting session. And I cannot wait to get firsthand on your book. And I want to read it, because I think there is a lot more that will like add on to my personal knowledge about the technology world.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I'm looking forward to reading your book now as well, because you can never learn too much more about. Yes. I'm looking forward to doing that too, and congratulations for getting it into the into the Harvard Business Shop as well. That's incredible. So I'll be looking forward to doing the same thing.
So we are some way connected. You are in the part of the process where you set up a business, and I am involved in the part of the process where I grew a business. So I think
Oh yes,
we're somewhere very much.
oh exactly. And you know something, one of the key parts in my own book, at the end of the book, is sometimes when you grow a business, you have to kind of make a decision. Are you the right founder? Are you the right CEO and entrepreneur to grow the business? Because just like the point I was saying about further innovation and growth, sometimes when you get past the $10 million point, that's why I call the book 0 to 10 million. You have a much more formal board of directors. They want to see a kind of professional CEO that's run larger businesses before. And you have to do an honest assessment of yourself. Like, are you the right person to do that? Would you like to move on to a new exciting business? And I mean, I took the personal decision to align with my personal life, that I wanted to, you know, I'd always stay as an informal advisor to help my companies out, but I like to get on to the next new exciting business and new exciting technology opportunity.
That's really great. Thanks a lot, Shane. I think I would now sign up from India. And how is the weather in Ireland right now?
The weather is actually it's pretty rainy, but I have to say it's not too cold. We don't get cold here in January, but in Ireland we get rain. Maybe about, my grandmother used to say we get rain 2 times every week, once for 3 days and once for 4 days.
That's really interesting. And the winter and the rain, that's like, I think that's a very deadly cocktail.
Oh, it is. It's green. It's an incredibly green country because there's so much rain, you know. We have 40 different colors. We call it 40 shades of green. But like, we're like you know, the Eskimos have lots of different words for snow. We're the same when it comes to green because of all the rain.
That's really interesting. Thanks a lot, Shane. Thanks for your time. We soon we'll share more information about your book and about mine
Brilliant.
in the description, and you can find and contact us through our contact IDs as well. Thanks a lot,
Brilliant.
Shane.
Thank you so much, Yashir. Thank you very much. Bye bye now.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.